Hi everyone and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today we're going to be making this incredibly simple baby beanie. And what I love the most about this baby beanie is that we don't have to cut and tie off our yarn for every one of these color changes. Instead, our pattern acts like a spiral. And for this project, I'm working with size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn, and these are both the Big Twist Value brand, and the colors are Khaki and Camel. And we'll also be using a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. And we're going to begin with our khaki colored yarn, and we're going to tie a magic circle. So to do that, drape your tail over your working yarn and pinch that intersection. And I'm going to change hands. And then you just yarn over and pull through your loop. And we're going to go ahead and just chain 1, and then we're going to place 1 single crochet and 5 double crochets inside our magic circle. And now we're going to pull out our yarn, but we're not going to tie it off. So we're going to attach our camel colored yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot. So we're going to drape our working yarn over our tail to form a loop, and then we're going to pull our working yarn up through that loop and hold on to our tail and working yarn to tighten the loop. And then we're going to pick up our magic circle and we're going to insert our crochet hook inside of it. We're going to yarn over and pull up through the magic circle, and then yarn over and drop our 2 loops for a single crochet. And so now we're just going to add 5 double crochets to this. And when you get done, you should have a total of 12 stitches. In each color, you should have 1 single crochet and 5 double crochets. And when you get done, you're going to pull on your tail to tighten the gap in your magic circle. And normally I would work over my tails, but you kind of want to be able to keep tightening your magic circle, so we won't be doing that. And I recommend grabbing a scrap piece of yarn or a stitch marker for this next row. So your project should look like this. For our next row, we're going to place 2 double crochets in each of our khaki stitches. We're going to skip our chain 1, and that can be sort of buried way down here, so it might even be hard to see. But we're going to dive right into our first single crochet stitch, and we're going to go ahead and place 2 double crochets there. And after you have your 2 stitches in place, then we're going to slide a stitch marker in that first stitch. And I'm just using scrap yarn, but you can use whatever you have. So now we're just going to continue to place 2 double crochets in each of our khaki stitches. You're even working in this very last stitch where you just pulled your crochet hook. And from your last stitch to your stitch marker, you should have 12 stitches. So now you're just going to pull out your crochet hook and make sure your yarn is nice and long so that it can't accidentally start to back up. And then we're going to reinsert our crochet hook in our khaki colored yarn. And we're going to continue that pattern. So we're going to begin crocheting in our first single crochet stitch, and we're going to place 2 double crochets inside of it. And we're going to follow this pattern until we get to our stitch marker, placing 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row. So when we get done, we should have a total of 24 double crochet stitches, and that should be 12 of each color. And when you get back to your stitch marker, your pattern should look like this. So now we're going to remove our stitch marker, and we're going to continue working with our khaki colored yarn, working over the camel. And the pattern for this row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in our first stitch, and then 2 double crochets in our second stitch. And we're going to want to place a stitch marker in our first stitch. And we're just going to repeat that pattern, alternating between 1 and 2 double crochets until we get to the end of our camel colored yarn. And from your stitch marker to your current stitch, you should have 18 stitches. So now we're going to pull our crochet hook out of our khaki colored yarn, and we're going to insert our crochet hook in our camel colored yarn. And we're going to continue following that pattern until we get to our stitch marker. So we're going to place 1 double crochet in our first stitch, and then 2 double crochets in our second stitch. And when we get to our stitch marker, we should have a total of 36 double crochets, 18 in each color. And when we get back to our stitch marker, we're going to go ahead and remove it. And the pattern for our next row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in our first 2 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in our third stitch. We're going to go ahead and place our stitch marker in our first stitch. And that's going to be our pattern until we get to the end of our khaki colored yarn. And we should have a total of 24 double crochets when we get to the end of our khaki colored yarn. And now we're going to remove our crochet hook from our camel colored yarn and insert our crochet hook in our khaki colored yarn. And we're just going to continue following that pattern of placing 1 double crochet in our first 2 stitches, and then placing 2 double crochets in our third stitch, until we get to our stitch marker. So we should have a total of 48 double crochets and 24 of each color when we get to the end of our row. And that was our last row of increasing. So we can remove our stitch marker and we won't need it anymore. So from here, all we're going to do is just place one double crochet in each stitch in our row. And so you can switch your colors whenever you feel like it. So if you want to go row to row, or just, place a section of stitches and then switch colors, you can. And you're just going to continue to follow this pattern of placing one double crochet in each stitch in each row to build the body of your beanie. And I went ahead and crocheted this until I had a total of 18 rows. And so now we're going to finish off our beanie. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that each of your colors has 24 stitches, and this should put them at opposite sides of the beanie. And then you're going to insert your crochet hook in your khaki yarn. And we're going to place a half double crochet in our next stitch. So to do that, yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your stitch, and then yarn over and pull up through the stitch, and then yarn over and drop the 3 loops on your crochet hook. Then we're going to place a single crochet in the following stitch, and then a slip stitch in our last stitch. And now we can cut and tie off our khaki yarn. And now we're going to insert our crochet hook in the camel yarn and follow that same process. So we're going to place a half double crochet in our first stitch, a single crochet in our second stitch, and then a slip stitch in our third. And then we're going to cut and tie off our camel yarn. Now we're going to hide our tails up the inside of our beanie. And once you're done, your baby beanie should look like this. And I personally think this would look super cute with a faux fur pom-pom. So I will link to my 2 DIY pom-pom makers in the description. One of them is to make a yarn pom-pom, and then one is to make a faux fur pom-pom. Please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were making this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Lipstick on a Rig. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.